Hello, I'm Julie Holt, and I'm with the clinical applications team here at Accuray. I'd like to welcome you all to today's session, where we'll be introducing our new VOLO Ultra optimizer for our Radixact and TomoTherapy systems. This course is designed for those who are currently familiar with planning on tomotherapy, and also planners who are just curious about planning on a tomo and what it might involve. So I'd also like to welcome Rick Vaden. Many of you may be familiar with him, but if you're not, he is the manager of our clinical applications team here in the US. Throughout this session, please feel free to answer questions via our Q&A tab, and Rick will answer them as they come in. But due to the size of the audience, we have disabled the chat feature so that we can streamline all the questions to that Q&A. So you can find the Q&A tab at the bottom of the Zoom window next to the chat and raised hand icon. So let's go ahead and get started by giving you a little background about myself. I've been a radiation therapist since about 1993 and started doing dosimetry about 7 years later. Then in 2004, I began working for TomoTherapy when there were only a couple Tomo machines installed. I joined the company because of its new leading edge technology. I was really inspired for what it meant for patients and the changes that it could bring to the field of radiation oncology. And those changes did occur. I mean, there were huge improvements throughout the industry. So I'm proud of our company and our products that we have provided over the years. But these past few years, they have been especially reminiscent of that same initial excitement that I had early on. And that's due to our recent releases of Synchrony and KV imaging, both of which are unique technologies to our systems, but they're also an opportunity to offer higher quality treatments to our patients and provide a delivery system that can give you that differentiating factor for your clinic. But now, in addition to those amazing technologies, we also have another product that we've added to our lineup, and that's our VOLO Ultra new planning software. So I'm really excited to introduce our new optimizer to you and to show you how special VOLO Ultra really is. So before I get started, let's quickly go over the areas that I plan to cover today. So we'll first look at the advantages of VOLO Ultra planning system and what it can mean for you and your clinic. We'll then go over the new features that we've added to the software. I'd also like to do an overview of a few features that our precision software provides. This will be a quick review for those who may not be familiar with the changes that came with precision. So part 4 and 5, this is going to be the meat of this session. I took some examples of some actual patient cases from our classic planning system, and then I replanned them on our VOLO Ultra optimizer, and I'm going to share those highlights of the results with you. I'm then going to show you a quick demonstration on VOLO Ultra, and I'll be planning a head and neck patient so that you can see real time just how quick and efficient that you can plan with our new optimizer. I'll then wrap up with some Q&A at the end, but again, feel free to type in your questions during the session using the Q&A tab, and Rick will get to them as he can. We may even use some of those questions for the Q&A at the end. But one thing to keep in mind is some of these questions that you may have, they may actually get answered during the demonstration portion. Let's get started with our first topic and look at the advantages of the VOLO Ultra. So we've had lots of requests to add features to our current planning software. Things like intuitive pitch selection, rescaling post-optimization, and also reduced complexity of planning. So instead of just adding these new features to our current planning software, our R&D team developed a completely new way to plan on Tomo. And with this improved optimization, I mean, it basically allowed our developers to incorporate important new features, plus provide a more simplified and faster planning experience. And depending on how you may have planned previously, there's a really good chance that it's going to improve your treatment beam-on times. And this is going to be without sacrificing quality. So these improvements are extremely important, not only for you, our customers, I think, but for our patients. And one thing to note is that during our initial studies, we found that there was up to 90% reduced planning time. That's pretty significant. And that was followed by a reduction in treatment beam-on times. And I believe that even our most proficient, experienced planners will most likely produce the lower beam-on times with the VOLO Ultra. And they're going to definitely see planning times reduced. So I'd like to start with looking at the new features that that have been incorporated into the VOLO Ultra. So the first one being prescription entry. This will be the actual prescription recorded in the plan report. And there is now an automated option for modulation factor and pitches. This can take a lot of guesswork out of choosing that optimal pitch and giving you kind of a jump start on your plan. It's also it's a nice feature for planners that are new so that they can get right into planning. Another popular change has been the removal of assigning overlap priorities to your structures. Many of you know that this step can be time consuming. I mean, especially when you have like a large number of structures to assign. So it's really no surprise that we've received very positive feedback for the elimination of this step. We've also changed the VOI goal entries. This is going to make it much more comprehensive for the planner. Now, this next one has been a highly requested feature, and I was really excited to see that this option was added to the new planning platform. So adjusting your DVHs will now include real-time interaction capabilities. And NTO, we've also added a normal tissue objective. This addition will add value in reducing dose in normal tissue outside of the target. Snapshot capabilities. This feature is going to give you more opportunities to look at multiple what-if planning scenarios, allowing you to seamlessly move forward with the desired results that you've created. Another popular feature that we've added is you can now rescale your dose post-optimization. This is a much needed nice addition, especially if you just completed your plan, you know your physician wants that full 95% volume coverage, and you're just short, a few after your final calc. So this is going to be helpful with that, or maybe your physician changes their mind and they want like a full 98% coverage. So this option will be available for you to rescale after you calculate your final dose. Okay, so for this last one, I added this as a feature because in all reality, it's an awesome change. But by having these new added features along with our new optimizer, it can reduce your planning time significantly. Not only does this new optimizer reduce the time, it will also be working behind the scenes to find the best solution to give you that optimal, high-quality delivery plan. So before I demonstrate the new planning software and show you some planning comparisons, I want to quickly go over our precision software for those users who may not be familiar with it. So with Precision, the images will be imported as 512 by 512. You'll also have the ability to have 4 open sessions at a time. This area is highlighted by the red rectangle there in the lower right side of the screen. Now, these open sessions can be used for optimizing plans, setting up new plans, or just having another patient loaded, ready for the physician to review and evaluate. Another nice option is the ability to have the same patient open in 2 different sessions, giving you the opportunity to work on both their primary and boost at the same time. So now in the middle right side of the screen, you'll be able to visually acknowledge your parameters in real time, like your Ganter speed, number of rotations, actual modulation factor, and your beam on time. And then below that area, you can monitor all of your structure stats in real time, like your min, max, and mean dose. You can also visualize set goal criteria for any or all of your structures. And I'm going to go into more detail during my demo on that. There's also better contouring tools if you need to add additional structures. This would include Boolean function, and it's very useful also if you want to quickly create isodose curves into structures. So the evaluation tools, they've also been improved. And you can quickly locate your maximum or minimum points for any of your structures just by one click in the stats list. You can also do plan comparisons with your DVHs, compare your doses, and also see your structure stats side by side. Now, this is really only a few of the upgrades that are included with Precision. There's many more, but I think it's important to point out some of the major changes for those who are not familiar with it and see how it aligns with our new optimizer, and also give you some background of Precision for when you view this demo on the VOLO Ultra. So now I'd like to share the highlights from the results of a few cases that were replanned on our VOLO Ultra. So I'm going to start with this prostate patient. For this case, there were minimal changes between the dose distribution for each planning system. So then for comparison purposes, for most simple prostates that are planned on a Radixact with our VOLO Ultra, we're seeing treatment times anywhere from 90 seconds to 2.5 minutes, with the average mostly around the 2-minute beam on time. So seeing the reduction of treatment times, that's really actually just the beginning of the differences that VOLO Ultra can make. So this case is a 3-field breast plan, left breast with axilla and superclad. Now, if you look at the sagittal view of the VOLO Ultra plan, which is on your left side, you can see more of the dose being carved out in the anterior lung area. And also the beam on time, it's a little bit better by about a minute savings time. So we can see that VOLO Ultra gave a little better normal tissue sparing and a little bit better time. But the significance of this case is the time that it took to plan. So for Classic, they spent between 4 and 6 hours planning this. And as some of you know, the really complex breast cases, they can take more time than that, sometimes all day and maybe even more. But planning on VOLO Ultra Optimizer, this plan took me 60 minutes to create. And that's a pretty significant time savings there. So I can see VOLO Ultra being a huge advantage for workflow in the clinic, especially in the planning phase when there's going to be a lot less time to push out your plans. All right, so now this was a scalp case planned on a Classic planning system. The customer prescribed the PTV to the median dose of 40 gray. So you'll notice that the target isodose is more of a light orange rather than the full prescription dose. So I'm not really sure if the doctor was looking for better sparing of critical structures or if they felt that the 50% coverage was sufficient. But either way, I personally would have liked to see more dose carved away from the brain. So now I'm going to show you the case that was replanned on VOLO Ultra. So take a look at the integral dose, how it was reduced, and how much more conformal the dose is around the scalp PTV. I'm just going to go back here again so you can see exactly the differences there. So for planning this case with the VOLO Ultra, I decided to be optimistic, and I optimized the prescription dose to 90% instead of that original 50%. And as you can see, that even with the higher dose coverage, the critical structures are still receiving a lower dose. So I think that the takeaway from this case is that whether they wanted less dose to the brain or they were concerned about too much dose to other structures, VOLO Ultra is going to give you more flexibility on how you want to prescribe the dose, plus create a plan with better dose sparing to your critical structures. So one thing I want to mention is that the cool thing about TomoTherapy's unique delivery system is that it's ideal for surface type lesions, whether they're big, small, or if they have like uneven surfaces, which we all know can be an ordeal when we're treating them with electrons. So now planning with these partial or full scalps and skin lesions with VOLO Ultra, it's really made planning those types of cases as well as the others much more special. So here's a quick look at the scalp's DVH differences. This graph has both plans overlapped with each other to give you a quick comparison of the DVHs. Again, the significant difference for this case is that tighter dose fall off, producing less integral dose and more conformality around the target. So notice the dose sparing to that green optic nerve and even the brainstem, the pink one there. I think they're especially noteworthy to look at. Okay, so this case is a multiple brain met patient with 5 PTVs. So both of these images on this slide, they are from the classic planning. And they're views from 2 different slices, each showing a PTV or 2, and the partial view of transitioning into or out of other PTVs. Now, although the PTV coverage is good from the classic plan, it's the beam on, and the beam on time, it's similar to the VOLO Ultra, but you're going to notice a distinct difference between these plans. And that's the dose fall off. I mean, that's a huge difference there. So I'm going to go back so you can see that again. That's pretty cool. Okay, so these are both the same slides. Excuse me, they're both, basically the same slides as your classic. Okay, but there's a distinct difference between them. And it really shows the advantages of our VOLO Ultra using that NTO function. So here's a quick look at the DVH differences between the 2 planning platforms. Again, it's a bit busy, but you can visually see an improvement between each of the critical structures by looking at the colored arrows, which are between each plan's corresponding structures. All right, so this is a cervix case. So to start with, both of these images represent the classic plan, and it's using a 2.5 cm field width. You can see that the dose coverage is pretty good. Normally for these types of cases, such as GYN or prostates with nodes, where the target depth changes quickly, especially in the sacral vertebrae region, we usually use that 2.5 field width. So, we do that to maintain a tighter conformality as the delivery goes through that steep transition. So here you can see the classic plan is mostly conformal, but watch the conformality of the targets as I switch to the VOLO Ultra plan. And this is really where VOLO Ultra Optimizer can shine. Let me go back. So look how much tighter the dose is to the target. Having that NTO option really made a nice difference with this case. But the big standout with this plan is that I was able to use a 5 cm field width. And yet I still achieved a nice conformal dose even through the sacral transition area. So the bonus that I received using the 5 cm larger field width was that it created a faster beam on time. So for this case, that time reduction was almost 40%. It went from a 5.5 minute beam on time down to a 3.5 minute treatment time. So additionally, I think that the plan quality was even close and slightly better, even with that 5 cm field width. So here you can see the DVH that shows the plans were close, but the highlight is really about the flexibility of being able to use that larger field width, because it can reduce your beam on time significantly, but it's even without sacrificing that quality. And in fact, it really gave it better conformality. So looking at the dose in these orientations, note the dose reduction in the coronal area where the PTVs are transitioning into a smaller size. This also, it gives you a nice view from the sagittal orientation where the dose conforms better through that sacral area on both the anterior and posterior areas. Okay, so for our last case, I want to show you the highlights from a TMI, total marrow irradiation, which we know are very complex treatment cases. You're basically treating the majority of this patient like the rind of an orange and trying to protect that precious inside portion. So the classic plan on the right, it was a 30-minute beam on time with the VOLO Ultra plan at 25 minutes. You can see that the classic plan, it did pretty well in the head region, but the Ultra gives it just a bit more conformality. And then in the thorax area, again, classic on the right side, it did pretty well, but the Ultra on the left, it gives a tighter distribution of dose, allowing less dose to your lungs, heart, and liver. And so for this slide, I'm just showing you just a few of those structure results to give you a quick look at the improvements that the VOLO Ultra produced. Here you can see the significant differences for the lung, the heart, and a huge difference there on the kidneys, and also the eyes. Okay, so for reference, both of these images, they're from the classic plan. A 5 cm field width was used due to the length of the target. The PTVs are covered well, but I wanted to see if it was possible to get the dose just a bit tighter to the PTVs. So now keep in mind, the image on the right is using a 5 cm field width, and it's transitioning through the sacral area where the depths are quickly changing. So it's really not the planner's fault that the dose isn't as conformal through that area. And that's just kind of a side note I wanted to give you on that. But now let's look at the VOLO Ultra plan. And this is really where VOLO Ultra is going to show off. So this one really caught my attention. I kind of took a double take on my comparison slides because it really cleaned up nice. Looking at the sparing through the kidneys and the tight dose fall off in the sacral area is amazing. So keep in mind, this Ultra plan also used the 5 cm field width. But you know, it's with the new optimizer and the NTO option. So I was really pleasantly surprised, you know, just how well that it did. So not only is it a higher quality plan, but it also produced a treatment time savings of 9 minutes. And of course, the planning time was also reduced. So one last look at the TMI images so you can visually see how intricate and complicated this type of case can really be. And with Tomo, the whole body region is treated in one pass as one field. The legs are then treated using an APPA method using Tomo Direct, which is a static angle delivery option. VOLO Ultra, it really now offers a more simplified way to plan these intricate cases. And plus, it really improves the treatment quality as well as your beam on time. Okay, so you've heard about some of VOLO's new features. You've seen the potential improvements that it can provide for your plans. So to finish this session, I want to move on to the demo portion.
Okay, so let's walk through a plan so you can see VOLO Ultra in action. Okay, so for here, let's start with the prescription, as we now have a place where you can enter the physician's prescription, and this entry will appear on your plan report. As mentioned earlier, there is also an automated option for modulation factors and pitches. But first, I'm going to enter my field width because it will be related to that pitch. So for the automatic pitch, when you click on this calc box, your pitch will automatically be populated to correlate to the target's off-axis measured distance. And this is using the information from the chin paper, as some of you are probably familiar with. So when I click on calc, it will default to the 0.4 range. Now, if I want a tighter pitch, I can enter the range that I want, like a 0.2, and it will fill in the corresponding pitch value for that range. This feature is a great addition for speeding up your plan process. It allows the seasoned users, as well as beginners, to automatically and quickly select an optimal pitch for your plan. So now, accelerate treatment. So this function will assist in determining how much modulation and how fast you want your beam on time to be. So if you determine that you would like less modulation and a faster beam on time, you'll move the accelerate treatment tab closer to the 10 area. Moving it to the other direction gives you the flexibility of incorporating more modulation. The advantage of this function is that you no longer need to determine the exact modulation factor, because no matter what you choose on this scale, the system is going to optimize the best solution with the parameters that you've given it. Now, I really love the simplicity about this function for VOLO Ultra. So now what I'd like to do is add a head and neck script. So I'm adding this script because I want to show you how nicely these can fit into the planning process. So grab here. So in Classic, you're pausing and you're building your optimization as you go. And there really isn't any distinct end or finished point. But now with VOLO Ultra, you can enter the actual constraints that you want to achieve for your final plan. Basically, it's your end game goals. So now your script will be much more useful and they're going to help speed up your planning time. And like I mentioned, the optimizer will work towards the best solution with the information that you've entered. So now this area here with the goals, it may look somewhat familiar as you still have the two sections for the targets and the critical structure goals. But instead, you're going to have a much more comprehensive goal options to use, such as weighting. And maybe you've noticed the new one here in the critical structures. You do now have a mean setting that you can enter. So this is one area where I'm really particularly happy with what they did with the improvements on this section. And you may also notice that there is no setting overlap priorities. This step has been eliminated. And no doubt, this has really been a popular improvement. So now I'd like to go over to the NTO tab. You have multiple point sets that you can determine the dose drop-off curve for your NTO. You can use the default settings or manually adjust the values, depending on how steep you want your dose fall-off to be. I usually just use defaults for most plans, but it's nice to have the option of tightening or adjusting this if you want to. So like, for example, if you want to create a steeper dose fall-off for SRS or an SBRT cases, you're going to have that capability. This new function is really a nice added benefit for providing even more conformality to your plans. So let's go ahead and let's get starting with our optimization. And that will start right here. So what's really nice with our new optimizer is that there is now an endpoint. There are going to be 3 rounds of 20 iterations each. And as you begin optimizing, this software will go through each of these 3 rounds automatically. So now, as this begins to calculate here, I want to show you the stats area over here, in case you're not familiar with it. These stats will be running real time, so you can, monitor them if you would like. Now, coming back over here, I would like to show you a new feature with the DVH points. You can now drag your DVH point to reset it, like that such, or you can click a point and it will automatically add that to your goals. So if I click here, it's automatically going to be entered in there. I can highlight it and I can put in a different weight goal right on the fly. So really nice improvement on that. So let's go back over here to our stats area because I want to show you the DX values. The DX values here are where you're going to be able to enter different goals that you would like to achieve. But we've now also got the criteria. So this is going to be like a scorecard that's going to tell you when you've achieved it. Obviously green meaning you've met those goals and the red where you have not met your goals. Okay, so we are at round 1, just finishing up that and moving into round 2. One thing that I would like to show you is the snapshot feature. Now, this is something that you're going to do after you're done optimizing, but for trying to save time here, I would like to point this out. So with the snapshot feature, it allows you to do what if scenarios. It's a much faster approach rather than saving another plan with another name. And you can also save up to 4 snapshots with this feature. So by clicking on any one of these, you're going to be able to save the current information. And then you can come back and look at each of these different scenarios by comparing them visually or by clicking on a compare snapshots with your DVH graph. Okay, so we are now in round 3. We are almost finished with that part. But as you're watching this plan, you can quickly see how it falls into place. Now, I've only been planning for a few minutes, and we're almost finished planning a head and neck, something that would usually take much more time. So just to give you a full rounded look at this, I want to go ahead and put in my dose painting so you can easily see the plan values for this. It looks quite well, actually. We can see that our oral cavity is doing really well. Our left parotid is doing really, really well. The spinal cord's doing quite nicely. So as we talked about those snapshot features, I'd like to show you really quick here how you can just click on that. And also, this is the snapshot to look at the graph, DVH graph. So this is going to do a comparison between each of the snapshots that you've taken. So a quick look so that you can choose which one you would like. So now, as we're finishing up our plan, I want to show you one more feature, and that's the rescaling. So now you can just click on your rescale dose here, and you can, scale it to wherever you need to do it. If you need to move it to the 95, if it's short with that, you can do so. Or if you want to bring it up to like a 98%, you're able to do that. Okay. So one last thing I'd like to point out with our VOLO Ultra, and that is the learning curve. Now, as some of you probably know, in our previous software, it took time to develop planning techniques. The learning curve to plan with VOLO Ultra, it's around 30 minutes. And you could see as I was going through this plan how easy and efficient it was that it could be for you to learn. So this will help you and your teams seamlessly transition between the two optimizers. So now if you add new personnel, they're going to be able to learn very quickly with this new software. So overall, not only is VOLO Ultra going to significantly improve your planning time, but most likely it's going to speed up your BMON times and improve the quality of your plans. Essentially, these improvements can affect many aspects of your clinic, from the dosimetrist workflow process to the therapist treatment schedule, and most importantly, the quality and time of each of your patients' delivery plans. Thank you for listening to that. And now we're going to move on to questions and answers.
Okay, so if you have any questions, make sure you go ahead and fill them out in the Q&A tab portion at the bottom of your Zoom box. And I'll just kind of hang tight and see if there's anybody that wants to ask anything. You can always talk to your clinical sales people. If you have other questions, you can also contact any of us application people. Just feel free to reach out to anyone if you have further questions that you can't think of right now. Okay. So if there are no more questions, I really want to thank you for joining our webinar on the VOLO Ultra, and I hope that you get a chance to experience it soon.